Hi, everybody, and let's get started. So, welcome everybody to episode 2 of the Flywire and NAAIS summer series. This time, we're going to be focused on arriving and financial success. Last time, we focused on preparing. So, we hope you guys will get a lot of good information out of this upcoming presentation. So, today's speakers will be Sudhanshu Kaushik, the Executive Director of the North American Association of Indian Students, NAAIS, and myself, Wilson Harmond. I'm a Payer Growth Manager here at Flywire. And some of the topics that we're going to be covering today are some travel tips, what you need to know in order to avoid some common pitfalls and be able to arrive prepared and ready to go. Then we'll be getting into the tips for financial success, where we'll cover some of the options for finances, as well as how to make a plan and when and how to do a financial checkout. And finally, we'll get into some special offers from Flywire, including our 2022 academic scholarship. So without further ado, I will hand it off to Sudhanshu.
Thanks, Wilson. So I hope everyone can hear me well and I'm not cutting out. I want to start with a story of my close friend who began to study at University of Wisconsin-Madison 2 years ago as a PhD student. So one, really smart guy. Two, has to have everything together. And three, still part of the process of coming to the United States, just like yourself, to study. He got here. One thing is in the process, and I'll explain a little bit more into detail, was traveling from Bhopal to New Delhi to JFK to Madison, Wisconsin. In the process of which he lost his travel documents. He didn't have his I-20 signed. On top of that, there were other issues. So basically, this individual had one of the toughest times getting to his home for the next 6-7 years. And it really leaves a sour kind of taste in your mouth after having to experience the US immigration system, the TSA, and then also have so much going on. And we want to make sure that incidents like these don't happen to you all, right? And it's really simple in terms of making sure unnecessary headache comes your way. So I'm going to be really quick about some really key things that I think can make your transition period from getting on a flight, being here, and settling down a little easier. And they will be very rudimentary, but we'll go into detail at the actual tour if you guys attend. So first of all, main essential things that you all need without a doubt, right? Some people will say cell phone, some people will say a ticket, etc. Here are the 3 things that you need legally to enter the United States. And these can't be digitally, they have to be physical documentation. 1, your passport. 2, your visa. Your visa comes in your passport, so you probably just have 1 document that you need. The second is your I-20, right? I personally say carry 2 to 3 copies of your I-20 and make sure that your I-20 has been signed by your DSO, your designated student officer. A lot of people come up with an I-20 that hasn't been signed. For some reason, one or the other, that's been missed out because DSOs have so much responsibility, especially at this time. A signature can only happen between a 6-month validity. So meaning that, it can't happen once you get admitted, it has to start from a certain date. And that sometimes is gone through. So make sure that, when you're booking your flight, that your I-20 has not just been issued, but signed. So make sure that you bring those 3 things as soon as you enter. Make sure you have digital copies. And again, making sure it's signed as you arrive on your port of entry. The other thing is understanding how traveling actually works, right? So a lot of people think that they are going from point A to point B. which could be Madison in some cases, which could be Houston in some cases, there's a high chance what you're going to be doing is connecting domestically, meaning you're going to take an international flight and coming to basically the United States or Canada and transferring domestically. That makes a little bit of a headache when it comes to your baggage, your own kind of transferring, because you might have to transfer internally with your luggage, but also maybe transfer airports as well. A lot of US cities have multiple airports, not like Delhi, Bombay, or tier 2, tier 3 cities, which only have one. So make sure that one, you're keeping enough time between your international flight and your domestic flight, not just the standard time that's given, but understand that as soon as you basically arrive on your international flight to a port of entry, which is where you'll be showing the documents, that you need to know that you will need basically at least an hour to transfer your luggage as you pick it up and then check it again for your domestic flight, meaning that it's not a one-stop check process that as soon as you send it in Delhi, it arrives in your destination airport at, let's say, Wisconsin-Madison. So make sure that when you're booking flights, you leave at least 3 to 4 hours in the middle to be able to do that. The second thing is timing and delays. We're all pretty substantial travelers, so we understand that flights get delayed. That has a resounding effect on your onward and upward travel. So those are two things that are very, very rudimentary: bringing your paperwork and also making it signed. But B, also making sure that your travel itinerary takes into account how long of a layover there needs to be able to actually accommodate your schedule. The last thing I would say that you need to know is that apps are different here. So for example, if you have Uber in India, Uber the USA will stop working in a limited amount of time. You also can't pay Uber drivers in cash, right? And while Wilson and everyone else will tell you about the incentives of Forex card, but understand that your apps that you use in India have very limited value here. You can't use a phone pay, you can't use a Paytm. Make sure that you're preparing yourself for the onward journey and what you need for that. So whether it's a taxi, whether it's a cab, whether it's actually finding an apartment or a place, and making sure that when it comes in this day, mobile applications are working here. How are you going to get data? Do you have a service? Do, for example, Airtel Geo offer great international roaming plans? Or have you already booked a kind of phone plan that you can get, which there are many of? So please know that there are these very technological issues that also come in the way that we don't even think about being brought up in India, and make sure we can prevent that to make your life a little bit easier when it comes to travel day. And this is also explicit to the ones that you would need in Canada as well. So I'm going to stop right now and come back later and let Wilson carry on with the presentation.
Awesome. Some great advice there. So now we'll move on to some of those tips for financial success that Sudhanshu alluded to. So here are 3 of the things you need to know for financial success as an international student. First is to know your options, then to make a plan, and finally to schedule a financial checkup. So let's break these down one by one. The first is to know your options. So there are a lot of different options for international payments and international funds transfers. The 4 most common are Forex card, bank transfer, actually just purchasing cash, and international credit cards. So there are benefits for each. There are also some considerations that you might want to consider. If you want to dive a little bit deeper and really look at the cost breakdown as well as the specific benefits and considerations, check out this guide to international payments here in the bottom left corner. Just to quickly look at this, right? So as you mentioned the Forex card, this is a great option for first arriving in the United States or Canada, particularly because you can use it as soon as you arrive, and it's preloaded with the local currency. So where an international credit card might be able to be used in the United States or Canada. You're also going to be incurring fees related to the actual transaction. So that can range anywhere from 3 to 4%, as well as GST, TCS, and the exchange rate on top of all of that. Whereas the Forex card, it's already preloaded. So it's really good for first arriving and kind of arriving prepared and paying for that first meal or expense when you land. The next is more related to actually transferring funds. That's going to be the bank transfer. These are offered by a variety of service providers. These are best for actually funding that bank account in the United States and Canada once you've arrived. Again, you can see they kind of run from low cost to high cost and from easy to use to slightly more frictions. And again, there's a lot more detail in that guide for international payments, so please check that out. Next is making a plan. So you know the options for being able to spend money or being able to send funds, but now let's talk about what it means to make a financial plan. So we've got a financial planning worksheet for you to check out on that QR code there in the bottom. And the characteristics of a strong financial plan answer these questions. They answer what are your expenses, how you plan to pay for the expenses, where you're going to actually store your funds, how you're going to replenish those funds in your accounts, and then most importantly, how you're going to pay for emergency expenses. As Sudhanshu alluded to, there are a lot of things that can happen, not just in travel, but also once you've arrived. And it's important to be aware of the fail safes and things that can help you succeed. So download that plan, make your plan before you arrive. And then once you've arrived, schedule a financial checkup. So just like your physical health, it's important to regularly check in on your financial health. So these checkups are really effective when they're done regularly, when they compare the plan that you made in the previous step versus your actual spending habits. You might notice over time that you spend more, spend less in certain categories, or you might have received a scholarship you hadn't originally planned on, right? Things like that that might change your ability or might mean that you need to change how you pay and how you save. And then finally, the results of a checkup should be either improved or changed behaviors, right? You want to constantly get better, constantly hone your skills and hone your financial health. So a quick note on that, I mentioned scholarships. Flywire Charitable Foundation has a 2022 academic scholarship. There's the QR code here in the bottom. You can also check it out at scholarships.flywire.com. We've got a total of 8 scholarships, 5,000 USD each. They're available for all international students. So if you're interested, check that out. The deadline is coming up here shortly. So just want everybody to be aware of that. And then as Sudhanshu mentioned earlier, Flywire does have you covered with regards to bank transfer and Forex. We offer the same rates and no surprise fees that you might have experienced with our tuition platform, and we're able to manage everything all in one place, which is a huge win. You can manage all of your Forex and bank transfer and tuition payments all in the same Flywire account, which means that it's easier and more simple to make repeat transfers and payments. On the Forex card side, we don't have any issuance fees. It works anywhere. You can load different currencies onto it. It's got fraud protection as well as a support line. So something that is really important to consider for those students who are preparing to arrive or who might be wanting to travel abroad. And finally, we've got part 3 coming up in a fortnight on the 29th of June. And that's where we're going to be talking about getting the most from your study abroad. And I think you're going to be really excited to hear what Sudhanshu's got to share. He's got a lot of very exciting information and really deep insights that you won't want to miss. So sign up for that here by scanning this QR code. And then Sudhanshu, I'll turn it over to you for anybody who wants to learn more about the NAAIS tour.
Absolutely. And before I do that, I want to talk about one last travel tip that I think everyone in this attendance, whether you're going to Canada or the United States or the United Kingdom, should know. One of the biggest misuses of international students actually occurs in their first 2 hours of when they're here, right? When they first arrive, which is a lot of international students come with a lot of physical cash to the airport because they don't want to take part in those transaction fees, because they don't have a bank account, all somewhat valid reasons. But previously, one thing that I can really, say confidently is don't do that. A lot of international students are taken advantage of by a lot of people because they know that these international students are coming with real cash in several thousands and thousands of dollars. Of course, it makes sense for you because that's your expenses for the rest of the semester. Instead, use the products that are offered by Flywire to make sure that you're not carrying that physical cash that ranges in thousands of dollars. A couple of $100, fine, you'll need that, maybe a little bit more, but make sure that you're playing it safe. Make sure that you're aware that other people know that you might be carrying this, and it's just not a smart tactic, right? So that would be probably one of the most important travel tips to say is do not carry that much physical cash with you as you arrive. On top of that, we are doing an NAAIS India tour, going into details, 90-minute sessions where you get to meet and also network with other students going to North America. We're still going to about 12 to 15 more college campuses. I'm sorry, not college, cities in India that we'll be hosting in the month of July, including Bangalore on July 15th and 16th, Bhopal, Indore, Hyderabad, Visakhapatnam, Vijayawada, Chennai, Delhi, Gujarat, Mumbai. So please, if you're around those cities, please come follow us on NAAIS.org. Scan this, some of the dates are out, but please do come to the actual tour to meet fellow students and learn more in detail.
So with that, we want to thank everybody for attending. And if you have any questions, drop them in the Q&A box now. If you've got any more detailed questions specific to your situation, or you want to learn more, email us at insider@flywire.com or find NAAIS at NAAIS.org. All right, so our first question, what are some of the Forex charges? So this is something that we hear all the time, and there's a lot of confusion and uncertainty around international charges and expenses. So we did talk about the guide earlier that kind of breaks that down. But on Forex transactions, there tends to be a charge related to the exchange rate. And that is what you'll see is the difference between maybe a mid-market rate and the actual rate you pay. And that can vary widely by providers. So it's important to find a trusted provider there. The other is related to things like fixed fees, whether it's the no-stroke charge or card reloading fees or things of that nature. So those fees might not always be present either. If you go through a bank, it might be buried on a detailed fee schedule. And if you go through certain service providers, you might not see those fees until you're surprised at the very end of booking. So I will say that Flywire doesn't have those surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. So right there on that front screen when you land at remittance.flywire.com, that's the rate that you're getting, and that is everything that you're going to pay outside of the TCS and GST, which we handle the calculations for. And so the next question, how to explore international credit card options that are available for students in the US. And this is critical, especially in cases where students don't have a social security number. So with regards to exploring some of the options for students, you have the option of getting a card issued by a local bank and using that. Those that will likely incur additional fees for each transaction. So that's something to be mindful of. You can do a international, like Forex prepaid card that similar to the one that Flywire offers. And that can be used, the same way as a card for e-commerce and apps and online shopping. But there are different service providers that allow for students to kind of bring their credit history from their home country to the US or Canada. There are service providers. One of them is actually an NAAIS sponsor called Nova Credit. They can help you bring some of your credit history over, so definitely check them out. Again, that is Nova Credit, and that's for credit cards. So that can be a little bit complicated. The Social Security process can also be complicated. You can additionally go the route of going through a bank account and opening a bank account in the US and actually using a debit card there. And Flywire's got you covered for funding that bank account via our bank transfer product. Where can you get a student account on Flywire? That's a great question. If you go to remittance.flywire.com, you can see in the top corner a button that says log in, and you'll be able to go through the process of creating an account there. You can also, if you've paid through Flywire before, you can use those same credentials to log back in. So no worries on that. What is a Forex card? So a Forex card is just a prepaid, it can be thought of as a prepaid debit card loaded with a foreign currency, right? This is an important distinction because rather than having to pay whatever the exchange rate is for each individual transaction like you might with a credit card, you actually have a known amount of funds loaded onto a card. So if you buy $100, 100 US dollars worth of funds and put them on a Forex card, no matter what the exchange rate does, and I know it's been all over the place lately, that $100 will still be $100 and you'll be able to use it internationally. So that's kind of the major benefit there, right? It locks in your exchange rate and kind of protects you from fluctuations there. Same deal, it also has a card number that you can use for online and e-commerce, as well as broad acceptance across millions and millions of merchants around the world. So that's a really important distinction and a really great question. The next is how to apply for a Forex card from India. So like I've mentioned, you can go to remittance.flywire.com and select the Forex option and enter in just some of the basic information that you'll need, and we'll be able to get you processed and actually send you the card and get it loaded with funds. So that's it's a simple, straightforward process. So definitely check that out. Again, that's remittance.flywire.com. And like I mentioned earlier, we've got that special promo where if you use Arrive 2022, you'll actually save an additional amount on your transaction. Another one, this is something I hear all the time from incoming students is, what's the best bank option for me to open an account? And this is something that I didn't go into as much detail on earlier. But as far as opening a bank account, you want to look for a few things. You want to look for a provider that has a local branch or local ATM near you in the United States or Canada. There are a lot of national banks that offer really good services. There are also local and smaller banks and other institutions known as credit unions that you might be able to use. There are certain banks and credit unions which are affiliated with your college or university that might offer you additional benefits, whether it's no fee checking, easy ATM withdrawals, or for certain schools or for certain bank accounts, they might offer low or no international wire fees. So some of those additional fees that might come up when you're transferring funds from abroad are actually completely covered and free for either all or for a limited number of transactions. Again, it varies widely by financial institution. So I would strongly recommend that you ask those kinds of questions and do that due diligence and research. Feel free to reach out to your international student office for guidance on the best local options for a bank account once you've arrived. That is a great, great question. Building good credit, same as before. There are a lot of providers. There's some providers that will be able to allow you to sort of import your credit history from abroad to the US and Canada. But in terms of building a good credit rating, without doing that, the kind of generic tips that I can give you relate to making sure that if you have credit, you have any sort of credit card or revolving credit line, that you pay it down as often as possible, right? Make sure you're paying your bills on time, on schedule, and not carrying a balance from month to month. That's a pretty common way to build credit. And there are a lot of other factors I would strongly recommend, looking at your individual financial situation, because a credit card may or may not make sense. So I don't want to make a broad sweeping statement for everybody, but it is an important thing. And it's something that even I think a lot about my credit score, my credit history. So definitely getting started early. So as soon as you arrive, making sure that you pay that balance. If you choose to get a credit card, making sure that you pay your balance down quickly and as often as you can, not carrying a balance from month to month. On the transaction fees, this is a pretty common one. Transaction fees vary widely across different payment methods. I mentioned that earlier. Some of them can be 0% and you don't pay anything extra. Others can be 3 to 5% or even higher, depending on different offers and different providers. So definitely do your research there. I would strongly recommend trying to pay in local currency. That's typically going to incur the lowest amount of fee relative to trying to pay in an international currency and dealing with exchange rates on top of everything else. Okay, this is a great question. So I already have a bank account in Scotiabank in Canada, and do I still need to take a Forex card from my home country? So what's important to remember, especially if you haven't already arrived in country, is that while you might have a bank account, and in Canada, right, the GIC process allows you to open an account prior to arrival, those funds aren't made available until you've visited the branch and completed what's known as the KYC, Know Your Customer process. So until you've completed that, those funds won't be dispersed to your Canadian account. So when you first land off the plane, what's going to be the way that you pay for transportation, that Uber from the airport, paying for your first meal, right? Things like that. That's where the Forex card is really a benefit, is those first days or weeks in between landing in country and actually arriving at the branch to open an account. And that goes the same for US students, right? In the United States, it's a little more difficult to open an account prior to arrival. So the Forex card really serves as a great bridge between, say, your intake is at the end of August, right? It serves as a great bridge between when you arrive and, you know, that first week, second week of September, when you've got your feet under you and you've been able to set everything up with a local bank. So that is a great question. I'm glad you asked it. So back to the Flywire scholarship. On that, you can apply for it by going to scholarships.flywire.com and filling out the application there. Again, that is scholarships.flywire.com. We've got 8 scholarships that are available, and the applications are still open until Friday. So keep them coming until that deadline if you're interested. The max amount that can be withdrawn. So this is a good question. What is the max amount that can be withdrawn using a Forex card? So Forex cards are a little bit different in that some of them have limits, some of them don't. You know, the max amount varies also by providers. Some might limit the maximum amount that you can withdraw from an ATM to a fixed number. Others might let you withdraw as much as you want. So read the fine print on every single one. I don't want to overstate on what provider may or may not have. You know, we don't have a limit on loading funds, but you may run into, so Flywire, right, doesn't have a limit on loading funds, but what you may encounter is ATMs in the United States may have a limit on the amount of funds that you could withdraw in a single withdrawal. So again, it varies by card. It also varies by the individual ATM that you use. This is a great one. Which bank does Flywire use for Forex card? So our Forex card is provided by HDFC, a well-known and well-trusted bank in India. So you have no worries there on the security, right? You've got the Flywire experience and that, you know, Flywire rate guarantee, and then you've got the expertise and security of HDFC on the back end and helping to provide you support and fraud protection and monitoring. So let's see, what are the uses for a Forex card? So that's a really good one. On that, Forex cards are actually great for helping to manage a budget. Like I talked about in step 2 of creating a plan. Forex cards work really well if you want to help manage a student's budget. Say it's as a parent, it might be the first time that the student has had to manage everything by themselves. And it also helps to manage the uncertainty that might come with paying for living expenses, right? So you might be able to load, say, $1,000, $1,500 onto it, and a student can, spend it over the course of a month or 2 months, and you can kind of get a feel for how much they'll need in order to maintain their daily living expenses, right? It's a great way to budget because it means, unlike a credit card where you can continue to draw down on your credit and potentially go over your limit, with a Forex card, right, it's like a debit card, wherein you run out of funds, that's it. It doesn't let you overspend. So it's really helpful there. It's also helpful because you can reload it online and have additional funds loaded pretty quickly. I think that's pretty much every question. If you've got additional ones, again, reach out to insider@flywire.com, or if you've got some questions about the NAAIS tour or anything related to kind of getting connected with some other students abroad or who are preparing themselves to travel from India to North America, be sure to check out the NAAIS tour that's going to be running through July. So, be prepared for our next webinar coming up on the 29th of June, where you'll, again, if you attend that webinar, you will be entered again to win a 1,500 rupee Amazon gift card. So with that, I will say goodbye to you all. Thank you for attending and for all of your amazing questions. And don't hesitate to reach out to us for more, and be sure to check out remittance.flywire.com for some of those exclusive deals and offers.